time now for Claudia and Friends. Claudia, who's your guest today?
Hi. The friend of mine that I have on today is Terry Rivera. Terry was a member of the fire department in New York, who we, of course, call the FDNY. And I'll let Terry go ahead and explain, everything that he did and wants to share with the listening audience today. Terry, you there?
Good afternoon. I am here.
Hi, Terry.
And,
maybe you could go ahead and explain a little bit of your 9/11 involvement. Terry was a responder on that day. He was one of the first responders on set. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay. I was actually a probie, which is a probationary firefighter, because I just had graduated the academy about 2 months, or 2 or 3 months before September 11th. I was assigned to Ladder 10, which is part of the 10 house. They have Engine 10 and Ladder 10. And we were actually the first ones on the scene there on 9/11. I was about to go home, and I was standing in front of the firehouse talking to some fellow firefighters when the first plane hit. I jumped back inside the firehouse, grabbed my gear, and went on as an extra man with Ladder 10 responding. And one of the first things that I had to do when we arrived there was take care of a man that was on fire. So that was one of the main reasons why I'm here today, speaking to that separation, those few minutes, or 5 or 10 minutes that took me to take care of a man that was on fire, separated me from my lieutenant, 2 fellow firefighters that did not make it, that died on that day, is why I'm here.
Wow.
Well, and I understand you were temporarily that night assigned over to, was it L33 or E33?
Yeah, 33 engine. So let me give a little background. Yeah, so the night before, I was working the night tour, and usually as a probationary firefighter, you never go out on what's called a detail. Usually they keep you in the firehouse, because as a probationary firefighter, you do 1 year servitude for 19 years of royalty, they say. You're pretty much responsible for all the cooking, the cleaning, and, you're the new guy. But that night they had a lot of senior firefighters working at 10 House, and they said, all right, kid, you got the detail tonight. So I was sent up to 33 engine and Ladder 9 on Jones Street, Great Jones, I think, which is an old firehouse. At one time, it's probably one of the oldest firehouses in New York City, actually, because it was the chief of department's firehouse. So it's a huge firehouse, beautiful firehouse. And I had a friend from the academy that was working there also, Tierney, that's the last name, and he actually lent me his uniform because it was pouring rain that night. So I was in his uniform, but everyone that I work with, including Tierney from my academy.
And then you were one of the very first responders, and you were helping a gentleman that was, did you say, on fire?
Correct. So when we pulled up, we couldn't even pull up in front of the tower because there was, when the plane hit, the fire is going to travel through any void spaces, and the biggest void space that it traveled through was the elevator shafts. And so when the fire came all the way down the elevator shaft into the lobby and actually blew out some of the windows, and several people were on fire in the lobby. And so when we pulled up, I jumped off the fire truck, and actually I went right up to Lieutenant. So it was me, Lieutenant Harrell, Sean Talon, and Jeffrey Olson, and he looked at us three, and he's the one that instructed me. He was like, Terry, go take care of him. And so me and another firefighter, John Morbido, rendered aid to that individual that was on fire right in front of the tower when we pulled up. And then I was not left alone, but John had to run inside and do his duties, and I was the one that, I think I sent Claudia a picture of it too. I had to package him, and then eventually another security guard and another fireman helped me carry him to one of the first ambulances that arrived on the scene.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Claudia, I hope it's all right if I ask some questions here. And
please.
I'm just grasping this. It's like talking to Colonel King, who was in the Pentagon, that, you're one of the very first responders on site, and the fuel from the airplane that hit the building and the fumes and the flames from that plane hitting just sounds like it just immediately went down the elevator shaft, which is some I mean, that's 100+ story structure. So was, went from the wherever the plane hit upon the tower, made its way almost instantly down the elevator shaft and to the people that were adjacent to the elevator shafts. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yep, correct. Even when we pulled up, like the windows were shattered in the lobby. Some of the windows were like spiderweb, and that's pretty thick glass also. There was one. So I took care of. I remember two. One was the guy that I rented 18th Street, and then there was a woman that was burnt severely, but she had already expired. That Jeffrey Olson went to rent 8 as he was walking in right by the entrance to the Trade Center. But there was and that's why another reason why the fireman had to walk up, because most of the elevators were out of service due to the fire coming through that shaft there.
Wow. I've never heard. Have you ever heard something like that from anybody, Jeff? I mean, that's quite a. I mean, that's instant, immediate problems that these folks that are around the tower, in the tower, were exposed to instantly. And do you know if the gentleman that you helped, did he survive, or do you know?
I do not know. I mean, another fireman who was there with me was John Morabito, and he told me that he had saw something that he had survived, but I tried contacting the burn center because I was a Navy corpsman before I was a fireman, so he had 2nd, 3rd degree burns pretty much throughout his whole body, and he was conscious when I was talking to him, and he was in shock. His eyes were open, and he was an elderly, middle-aged Asian male, and but I never really found out whether he survived or not. Because my gut instinct was that he wasn't going to survive those kind of burn injuries.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry to, I just think it takes time to get that of what you went through in just a few seconds wrapped around your mind. I mean, my gosh, this is something. Okay, and go ahead.
And so that little separation there, I guess, maybe 10, 15 minutes when I went back inside the towers, and I asked another firefighter, John Morabito, where did the lieutenant go, and he instructed me they went up the B stairwell, and I went to go chase after him, and he grabbed me by the coat. He's like, "Where are you going?" Because you only have enough radios and SCBA's masks, oxygen masks, to assign. And I was actually off duty, so I jumped on as an extra man. So I had no radio and I had no mask. All I had on was my bunker gear. And he said, "Just hang out here with me, go help outside with the engine, and we'll go up there as a team. There's going to be an all-day thing. We'll get up there eventually, get him, try and get a mask, and then come back in at least." And I really didn't want to go back outside because let me give you a better picture. I try not to give too much graphic detail, but I guess it's important for historically. So not only was there a burn victim, but there was also, which I'm sure you heard of, a lot of bodies that were jumping and falling from the upper floors. So, and that was happening all around me, and even a fireman was killed by one of the civilians that were falling from the towers, because it's a natural instinct. You're going to jump before you burn to death. And so that was one of the main reasons why I don't want to go back out there to see that, because it's a pretty, it's probably one of the worst things you could see ever, when you know that individual is going to jump before they burn to death. So, but, I followed what he said, so I went back outside, helped the engine connect, and while trying to avoid being hit by fallen bodies. And then eventually I made my way back inside, not with an oxygen mask, but just with some spare cylinders, hoping to relieve another firefighter and have a spare cylinder so I could use that one. But then I got an order from a chief that told me that, to get back outside, go across the street where the command post is at, by the Winter Garden. So the second time I went out, and I saw Engine 10, I saw the chauffeur who was the firefighter that's responsible for Engine 10, who was trying to supply water. He was an elderly, and he was pale as a ghost, and I thought he was, having heart issues or something. And I went over and said, "Danny, are you okay? You want me to take over?" He said, No, I'm fine. I got to stay with the rig. And So I got him some water, and that's when the second plane hit. We were outside. I saw it bank over, like by Deutsche Bank, coming from that direction, and we jumped inside engine 10 to avoid getting hit by debris when the second plane hit.
How much time was there between the two planes hitting those structures?
I gotta say, I don't remember the exact time, but it was about, it's well documented, but I think it felt like, time when you're there, time really is, it felt like, minutes, but it was probably a good 15 minutes, I would say, in between. Maybe even longer, 15, 20 minutes. But
yeah, I was going to guess maybe 20 minutes because I had gotten a call from a friend, and I had just turned on the news, and I saw the one tower aflame, and I saw the second jet come flying in. So, yeah, I'm going to guess it was about 20 minutes.
Okay, Terry. Well, wow. This is something else, Claudia.
Terry's the initial witness. He's the voice that needs to be heard.
Yes.
By everyone. And I know it's painful for him to share his experience, and I hope the callers or the listeners understand that also. And he's trying to get across the historic moments that he served and that some of the things that he's seen while there to drive this home, so that it's not forgotten. Everybody says never forget. That becomes a rhetorical comment. And once a year, we'd never forget. What about the rest of the year? What about all the people that are sick and dying? This is not a one-day event. It was not a event specific to the East Coast. This was a nationwide event. Responders from everywhere came in to help out, and responders from all over this country are sick and dying from what we were exposed to. Terry certainly took the brunt of it. When you're right there, Terry was there when those buildings came down. And so he got that initial thrust of dust and toxins all over him.
Well, plus all the toxins, and plus the toxins from all of the memories of seeing people perish right there, many of them, and only able to do what one human being can actually do. And then with the dust and the contaminants and the reality of a structure that was one of the most recognizable two structures in all of the planet, crumbling to within their footprint pretty much. Wow.
And taking out a lot of people in the process. Over 343 FDNY firefighters perished that day, and many of those were Terry's friends. So, again, this is a painful experience for him to share. One of the fellows that died from the house that he had been assigned to that night before at E33L9 was Kevin Pfeiffer. We've heard a lot about the horrible attacks that just took place over in Paris. Well, there was two French brothers, the Godet brothers, who did an incredible documentary on probationary firefighter. And within that documentary, you'll see they interview Joe Pfeiffer, who was really the first one to call this a terrorist attack when he called it into dispatch that day. And if people haven't seen that documentary, I would urge them to. It's really good. It was put up by Nextel. It's 9/11. That's the simple name of it. It's the Godet brothers who put that together. And one of the individuals who was killed from the house that Terry was serving in was Joe Pfeiffer's brother, Kevin. So these are incredible people that have endured things that, our military can certainly relate to. And those that were there, 9/11, relate to just as much and just as deeply.
Okay, so Terry, here you are. The second plane has hit the other tower, and that's where you stop. Sorry, I interrupt you, but sorry to run your mind through this again. What you're saying is just I don't know if people have heard it before, like Claudia said, so it's going to take us a little while to grasp what you're seeing live, probably in slow motion in your mind. My goodness. So, can you talk more about it?
Yeah, no, I have for lots of years I didn't say anything about it, but now and especially for this show and for this is history, and it's important for people to understand, and from my perspective, and this is what I would like to ask every politician, if they could hear this or pass the word, where were they on 9/11, and then think about these kind of stories. This is where I was. So I'll continue. So after the second plane hit, I was inside. We jumped inside engine 10 to escape because it was the way it directed. Actually, debris hit the fire truck, and pretty much we were right in the middle of West Street. So we had to get inside engine 10 just to get cover. And then after that, second plane hit. I decided to go back inside the Trade Center again because I didn't want to be a sitting target outside. And then I was directed again. I was trying to hide, and because one of the worst things you want happening to you as a new firefighter is for a lieutenant, for your officer to give a mayday, like a missing member. So my biggest worry was not anything that was going on with the fire or anything like that, but that I didn't want my lieutenant to come down or not see me and then have to give a mayday, and then it's embarrassing for the firehouse and the fire company. So that's where my mindset was at being. Actually, and on top of it, that was actually my first fire. I had done some fire duty in Brooklyn as part of the academy. I did a 14-week, but 9/11 was really what I would consider my first job because there were lives at stake. I had been to car fires. I had been to, second due to but there was no lives at stake. But this was the first fire I had been to where lives were at stake. And so as I went back inside, I'm waiting, and then I get told again that, they're starting to evacuate. Says, nope, you got to go to the command post. And as I walk outside, I hear what sounded like 1,000,000 champagne bottles breaking. And I look over to the left, and the second tower that was hit, big mushroom cloud starting to come down. And, okay, what do I do now? I see people across the street running down towards where the World Financial Center is, down into that direction. There's like a underground garage there. And I didn't want to run back inside the Trade Center because it looked like the tower that I'm in is going to get hit as well. So I run like the opposite direction, trying to go towards Vesey Street, and where there's an underpass and a couple of fire trucks. So I start taking off in that direction, and I get hit with something on my shoulder, like a piece of something from the debris that as the things collapsing. It was like something out of an Indiana Jones movie, and that's what signaled to my brain that, okay, I got hit, this hurts, I need to take cover, and I dove under a fire truck. And at that last second, boom, I got hit with a concussion wave from the collapse. I got dove in front of a fire truck. You can imagine how long a fire truck is, and when I recovered, I was wrapped around the rear tires from one end to the other end, bounced around underneath it. And I lost my helmet, lost my gloves, and actually at that moment I guess I was dazed, and I thought I was dead because I couldn't see nothing until I tried to breathe, and I couldn't breathe because of all the cloud. And then that signaled to my brain, okay, I'm still alive, but now I can't breathe. So I held my breath, and I just started crawling, and I crawled over, the main thing, I'm holding my breath, so the main thing is I got to try and get air, so I'm crawling, and I crawled over a fireman that was killed, but he had a mask on, but his mask was mangled, so I couldn't use that. And so I keep crawling, and then when I felt some grass, so I knew, because I worked in that area, that the only place that had grass is this little area right before the financial center. So I squinted my eyes open, and I could barely see the glass from the financial center. And there's another fireman there who's asking for help, that he can't breathe. And I don't want to say nothing because I don't want to lose what remains in my lungs. And I hit the glass, and there's a piece of scrap metal, glass, and then we both dive into the financial center. And that's where we're meted by EMS, comes and drags me over there. And I don't even think I told Claudia. One of the EMTs treated me. I remember his name at this moment. But he got killed in the second collapse.
Oh my gosh!
And because I was definitely in a shell shock mode at that point. So he was trying. One of the things in a normal fire, like in a residential, in a two-family house, when if in a dangerous situation, when there's when you can't see and you have to rescue somebody, you want to break the glass to try and alleviate the smoke. And in my head at that moment, I wanted to break all the glass in the World Financial Center to try and alleviate smoke, so the smoke could clear outside. Which I don't know if everyone can understand what I'm trying to say. 'Cause it didn't make sense to anybody, but in my mind, it made sense that by breaking the glass there, somehow it's going to alleviate that. And then he looked at my name on my jacket, and he saw my last name, Rivera, and he was also Spanish. He's like, "Wait a second." He's like, and then he yelled out, "Walking wounded," and I was a corpsman, and then when he walking wounded, it signaled something in my brain like, "I'm not walking wounded. Who's he talking about?" But in fact, I was, a little bit out of it at the moment. And he said, "Don't worry, sit here, let them take care of you. I'll go break the glass." And by him doing that, that's when they started to treat me. But so I was in the back of the ambulance when and then the guy came over. I forgot who he's from. Like, he saw my, he asked me what, another fireman that helped me get into the ambulance. He's like, "What company are you from?" Who had just gotten there, so he was trying to get just a bearance. "I'm from Ladder 10. He's like, "Okay, you know the area, are you going to go to?" I was like, "No, I don't think I need to go to the hospital." He's like, "All right, get treated and then help me, help us, try and find people." I said, "Sure." And then I'm in the back of the ambulance and they noticed that big welt on my back when I got hit with something. And I was coughing up a lot of blood because my whole throat got cut up pretty much by all that debris cloud. So they were telling me no, that I have to go to the hospital. And I wasn't happy about that. So while we're trying to argue about me going to the hospital, yes or no, that's when I hear the same sound again with 1,000 champagne glasses. And I look at the back of the ambulance, and the other tower's coming down. So I jump out the back of the ambulance, along with EMTs, and then we run up towards the water. And that's when I ran into a few people from my company eventually in the firehouse. And I'm sure you have some questions now, so I'll take a pause.
When you say the water is the that would be at that point
Hudson.
The Hudson River, right?
The Hudson, correct? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and how far was the Hudson River from where the towers are located, to give our audience a feel for that?
It's pretty much like 2 blocks away, maybe. I would guess like a football field.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, about 100 yards.
Yeah, about 100 yards.
Okay. And this is just something else. Okay, so you came to near death many times here.
Oh, yeah. When I try, and that's why I'm reluctant to even tell my story to a lot of people, because I've noticed that I've told bits of it, and you get that look in somebody's eyes like, yeah, right, there's no way you could survive. And it's even when I think about it sometimes, like, did this really happen, the way? And yes, it did. And I mean, if I could count the ways from everybody I was working with the night before, if I didn't get relieved early, I would have been with that group with 33 and 9, and I would have died with them. And if I had not gone on the detail, if I was working in my firehouse, because then since I'm in probie, I got to work to the hour, then I would have been still, technically working to the end of the shift, and I would have had a mask and a radio, and I would have been on the inside team. So I mean, it could drive yourself crazy thinking about how many ways that I avoided death.
There's a common question among people like Terry that survived incidents like this, any type of incident where your comrades have all died and you're still alive, and that survivor's guilt can be crippling. But what I'm going to say here for Terry and for everybody is that, John Wayne, I think, really summed it up, and this is how I see Terry and so many of our 9/11 family. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. That's what Terry did. And his whole purpose, as I see it, for so many people that survived that day, is to be a witness to all those that didn't. And that's what Terry is here doing right now. He's a witness for all those that didn't survive and sharing his story.
Well, it is an amazing story, Terry. To me, this is going to have to be probably communicated a few times if Terry's up to it, Claudia, because we're through time. People are going to have questions and want to know various things if Terry's all right with it, obviously. But you tried to save a man's life that was burning from the flames coming down through the toxics and the fuels burning coming down those elevators. And let's see, that's 100 and some stories high. So what is that? 1,500 feet high? Is that how tall those towers are, Jeff? So that gives a feel for...
There are 110 stories, and I'm going to say, 9-10 feet per story?
No, I would say at least on the structure that's got that much weight, you're going to be at 14 to 15 feet per story. So,
wow.
so that's why I'm thinking 14 to 1,500 feet high. And so that those fumes came down that quick, and people are burning, glass is exploding. Your team, the people from number 10, many of them went inside the tower. So as you realize that, and then the tower collapses, you're trying to save your life from the debris of the tower and people falling from the tower, and fully realizing that many of the people that you knew from Station 10 have just perished. And then another plane hits, and the whole thing is played all over again. And you're going through the whole event of a structure collapsing a second time. And of course you're exposed to all the contaminants. You're exposed to, in your own mind, seeing death in front of you. And you're living with the reality of seeing it in your mind probably time and time and time again. Wow. I feel, man.
And he's come to like the outstanding person that he is. And that's the bottom line. He's gone on. He's been a witness for other people. He showed courage in the face of the devil. And, that's the bottom line of Terry's story.
How are you doing, Terry?
I'm doing, I got no complaints. I feel, I'm a big New York Yankee fan, so I feel like I'm I don't want people feeling sorry for me or anything like that. I feel like the luckiest man alive on most days. So I have, I've got banged up. I got some damage. I was forced to retire in 2007 from fire department from the effects of 9/11. I lost about approximately 21% of my lung capacity between. I got hired in 2001, and I started the academy in January 2001. So from 2001 to 2007, I lost over 20%. So I was forced to retire, which was probably the hardest thing to happen because I had pushed all that 9/11 stuff. I'll deal with it when I retire. I was expecting to retire after 20, 30 years, but it was cut short, and then I was faced to deal with it, forced to deal with it, and so I wound up leaving New York City. I went to Hawaii for a bit, which is always a good place to heal, and I got my degree in, ironically enough, in disaster preparedness emergency management. It was a very cathartic experience going through it, especially when I took the terrorism course, and on the cover was the World Trade Center, and then giving my testimony in that class about 9/11, because one of the students started bringing up about those conspiracy theories. There was no planes and nothing, and I raised my hand, and I said, well, there were planes. I was there. I saw it.
Wow. Wow. So when you say you lost 20% of your lung capacity, just give the audience is it like when you take a deep breath that you can't really take a deep breath?
Yeah, well, it's so much more. I mean, it's just to give her. So I was in the military before, and I actually joined the military to be a Navy SEAL before being a Navy. So I was very active. I was always, a runner, swimmer, and I noticed it, pretty shortly thereafter. Like my wind got cut dramatically since I was always in such good shape, and I just get fatigued a lot easier. The way to describe it was. So I was like 30 years old at the time that I had the, because over time your lung capacity, of course, is going to diminish, but my lungs were equal to like a 55-year-old. That's what they said, my lungs. So, but pretty much I knew it as well also, and I had other things going on, which is like hyperreactive airway disorder. My airway suffered chemical burns due to the alkaline or the alkalinity, I guess, in the chemicals from the debris. And just like if you burn your hand, just a regular burn, you'd have those new nerve endings that are hypersensitive. So my throat was hypersensitive to smoke and chemicals and would give asthma-like reactions. So I had a couple things going on. So that's when it was time to move on from the fire department.
So that's the inside of your breathing was burned and contaminated. I mean, it was.
Yes. Yeah.
So that means everything inside of you. Golly, I mean, all of that had to heal.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was coughing up blood for approximately at least a good month or so. It was all cut up from all that when that collapsed and all that choking on that dust.
So it's basically
pretty much choking on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was a lot of which is even more fine than asbestos. It's a silica, all that glass, which is, even a smaller particle. So, you think that's why it got cut up. So it's got cut up, and plus it's getting embedded in your throat with all that toxins. It's like, it's not a good scenario, and that's why so many guys are getting sick and so many fellow firefighters are dying, because it's not just being exposed. It's just the way, now they're starting to realize why, because the silica made, it's like cutting it open. So it's like an open wound, and then all these toxins are going right directly in.
So, you lost 20%, and then you went through. I mean, and I suppose you never will completely heal from all of those wounds that you had within your oxygen system, your breathing system. That was all contaminated from the inside as well as the outside of your body.
Yes, yeah, it's that's why it was permanent. It's permanent damage. So I have to try. I try and remain. Luckily for me, that at the time I was always very healthy, not a smoker, and but I have to be extra vigilant now, and as far as eating and staying out of contaminated environments, and I have to still exercise my lungs, because if I don't, I notice if I slack off and not do my breathing exercises or anything, that it starts to get a lot worse.
Wow. Well, I'm just, it just hits you hard. I mean, Claudia mentioned that had somebody who was right there, and the number 10 fire department, which is right adjacent, and I thought about it for a while, and I'm going, my goodness, I wonder what this man has seen. And then when you define what you've seen and the whole possibilities of how many times you yourself could have died, plus the number of people that you've seen die, and what your body was exposed to, and your whole company, you call it a company, or what do you call it? That number 10. I mean, how many?
Yeah. So usually, outside of New York City, they call them stations, but in New York City, we call them fire. So. Actually, my firehouse is kind of new, because there's only 2 firehouses in New York City that have the same engine number and the same ladder number. There's only 10 and 10, which is my firehouse. So they had 10 engine, ladder 10, and engine 10, otherwise known as the 10 house. And then there's another firehouse in the Bronx. I think it's 52 and 52. But there's only 2 firehouses that use the same number. So, but I was part of ladder company 10.
Wow. Well, Claudia, this is something else. this man has seen hell. Has just flat
And he's still here to tell his story, and thank God for that, because him coming on today was not easy. And I can't emphasize that enough, or that what he's doing here today is serving as a witness for all his brothers and all those people that have died then and since that are sick. Terry's sick, and he's only 44 years old. And
I think Claudia says it so well. I mean, there was the 9/11 event that took place, yes, and Terry was right at ground zero when all this stuff took place, and unfortunately, many people are still dying from that day, which are being murdered and severely wounded, and that's the part that we Americans need to let other folks know about, and that's why Claudia's cause through this 9/11 Rescue Workers and Friends.org is hugely important to keep the word out there. As we've got to get the word out to get our politicians to support the folks that were and are at arm's way with their health, and the mental side has to be something else as well. I mean, I can't imagine what you've seen there, Terry. So